was more than a block. It was a big area.
Because Earl, and just take a little circle around and go real slow, but with the momentum of that 90-foot chain and the sleigh around there, he was making pretty good sized circle, wasn't he?
Oh yes, it was the whole length of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids on the sleigh would usually switch the sleigh back and forth. We used to ride it all the time down the Geneva Road at night and after school.
I can't imagine Earl ever doing that.
Oh yeah, we used to do that all the time before Geneva ever came in.
Well,
there were no cars on the road.
There wouldn't be very much.
And there was always a sleigh bank or a snowbank, a 2-foot snowbank on the side of the road, and we'd go down the road and he'd just go really slow, and then we'd switch it back and forth from side to side on the road.
So that it...
And just have a blast. We had more fun on that old sleigh. That was everyone in town.
Everybody in town wanted to ride that.
Yeah, wanted to ride that sleigh. And but safety conscious wise, Dad really was. Both of you were, because any time a car came in any direction, the minute we saw their headlights, he'd pull over and stop, and everybody'd have to get off the sleigh and stand on the other side of the snowbank. And then we'd get back on again as soon as the car passed, because there was only, sometimes you'd ride half the night and never see a car. But when he started taking it to school like that, when they started to bring Geneva in.
Well, that'd be about 40. Well,
that was about my last year there. They started to bring Geneva in, and there were no fences on the playground. And so Dad invented all kinds of things to keep us out of mischief, so no one kicked a ball or threw a ball or out into the road, because there was so much more traffic on the highway than we'd ever been used to. So if he didn't have us all out there on the toboggan doing something, or quite often Joy Quaid brought in his horse and his sleigh and took us for rides around in that. And then somehow the two of you came up with a whole box of ice skates, and everybody lunch and noon hours, and we'd go up and ice skate. The kids would bring their own, those that had them. We'd go up and ice skate on the ponds over the sand hill. And the whole school would ice skate. I remember that's how I learned how to ice skate. The kids put me on the end of a pump. Come on, Ruth, we'll show you how to skate.
Oh, my.
All you got to do is just hold on, and they put me on the end of the pump.
The end of the line and flipped you off.
Oh boy, did they ever!
Oh boy.
But we did have fun. And then somehow you came up with roller skates. Do you remember the roller skates?
Yes. And I don't remember where Earl got them, but he...
I do. You got them from the Lehigh roller rink. They got new ones, and somehow
Earl went down in his pocket and paid for them. I know.
You got a whole bushel basket full, or 2 bushel baskets full.
The school.
Lehigh roller rinks, old clamp-on skate, because they were getting the shoe skates.
Well, whatever they sold them to us for, Earl paid for them.
Yeah, we knew that.
Because we never got any help from the school district on things.
Now, where we roller skated, see, originally there was the school, and then there was the building next to it that they used as the lunch room. And then the church was across the street, and I think we had lunch over in the church for a while, because there was, I don't remember, there was a while that we didn't use the lunchroom. And then when Geneva started coming in and they condemned the church, then the church came back over and took the lunchroom. But we went back over into the lunchroom, and we roller skated in the lunchroom. As soon as dinner was over, we'd put the tables and chairs up, and everybody would roller skate, or else we'd ice skate, or we'd play basketball, or we'd all be out on the ball field on the far end playing baseball, or else we'd be marching. And we'd march up and down those halls inside that building, up and down the steps. There'd be a string of kids from one end of the building to the other, but Pap would have everybody marching, and he had us always doing something organized to keep the kids away from the highway.
The kids that didn't have horns, we bought them for them.
Mm-hmm. With his little band, I organized the band when they first went down, didn't he?
And this is a picture of the little band that Earl organized with those kids. He had everyone from the.
There's first grade through sixth grade in there.
Did he have the first graders?
Well, Pearlie's there.
Pearl was Pearl was the drummer. And
first through sixth, because Pearlie's in there.
I don't know.
And I'm fifth grade.
There.
Now band's on.
Little tiny one back there with her drum, and she's littler than any.
This is Pearlie, right back there.
Okay.
That little itty bitty one right there.
Yeah, show 'em where you are.
And this is me right. Oh, the tallest one, right there with the accordion. Right there. And I don't remember who the drum major was that year. The next year, then I was the drum major.
You were the drum major of the little high school of the little vineyard band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, push it back a little bit. It's too much.
Well, we sure had fun with that little band. We went all over the country, but I know that you and Dad bought an awfully lot of those instruments that those kids had.
Well, I don't remember who paid for the little capes, but you had little blue capes, and you all had little hats, and one or two. We had a drum major hat. Earl had.
Mm-hmm. The drum major has the drum major hat on there.
And
I know who paid for them.
Who?
You and Pappy did. I think the PTA made them, and you paid for them.
And we paid for the material.
Uh-huh.
Well,
but you undoubtedly bought the hats.
Yeah, we'd have to buy the little caps. But that little band was the talk of all the schools. It was the talk of all around when we'd take you kids up to Salt Lake. You marched 2 or 3 times in the Salt Lake Parade.
And we marched every year. We'd leave the Salt Lake Parade. But at that time, the high schools most of the high schools didn't have a junior high band.
No.
And no grade school around had a band, and not any bands did any maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
And Pappy had us maneuvering while we played. And that's why, as well as sounding pretty good, but to do the maneuvers and to be that small, that's why people were so effervescent about us.
People.
We were cute.
That's for sure, and we had more compliments on you than on that little band than anything I think you ever did.
I can still remember going down the street and hear people saying, "Oh, look at that little teeny drummer! Look at that little teeny kid! Look at the way she's pounding that drum!"
Pearl beat the bottom out of that drum.
Pearl was the best drummer in the school.
Well, she went on to be a
good drummer.
A real good drummer. She taught drums and she played in commercial bands.
But she could pound that drum. She was darn good. But the way we got a lot of the instruments, too, Dad would buy an instrument and then let the kids work it off, or else he just, all the tubas and the French horns and the bass horns and that kind of stuff, you just bought.
Well, we just left.
They're still up in your attic.
Yeah.
And the cymbals and the bass drum. And I know he traded drums with kids all the time. He'd buy Pearl a drum, and then somebody'd want to buy it, and finally felt they could, and so he'd sell her drum. He did that with my accordions. I had all kinds of different accordions. I started out with 120 bass, and then I think the next one I had was a 12 bass, and then sold that one. Somebody wanted that. We sold that one, and I had 80 bass. I had an 80 bass when the war broke out, and they were hard to get. Then I had that 80 bass, but that was a new one.
Well,
And that was the first new one I had. Everything else was used.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
But you had, you went on to play accordion and teach accordion. You taught up at Summer Hayes Music, and you taught accordion all the way through high school?
No, not through high school. I didn't have a lesson until I graduated from high school.
You didn't have a lesson?
No. Pappy taught me.
Pap didn't teach you to play the bass or the
Accordion? Sure he did.
the accordion.
Sure he did.
That was just your natural ear on that.
No, Pappy taught me. Shirley Williams played the accordion when we went down there. And he liked the accordion, so he decided I was going to play the accordion. He bought me an accordion, and he said, "Come here, Shirley, show Ruth where the bass is." So Shirley showed me where C and what the different chords were, and Dad stood there and listened, and we had a chart. He says, "Okay, there you go, it's yours. Get with it." And that's about the size of the instruction I had. But it did come natural. But then Pappy would work with me, and I was taking piano, and the piano hand was to sing. And so if I had a question, or if I had a problem, then I'd ask him, and then I'd tell him, "No, that isn't right. That isn't right, Pap." He'd sit down with me, and we'd figure out the bass. And that's the way I started. But most of the bass just came natural, and most of it I did play by ear.
I didn't know that Pap ever had anything to do with the teaching on it, because
Oh, I learned a few pieces by music right at first on it.
he taught all of the wind instruments,
Uh-huh.
but he learned enough on the piano that he could pick out chords, and he always wanted to take piano lessons.
Well, he knew enough that he could help me pick it out, and he could read the music.
Yeah, could read real well, and that's what one of the classes that he took, one of the summer classes was all harmony. So he had good training in it. Well,
But that little band went all over. And when we went to Salt Lake, and all summer, you and Dad would work all summer long making homemade root beer for us.
I'd forgotten that. We'd make homemade root beer.
Oh, we used to, "Isn't it root beer yet? Isn't it root?" And it had to sit for a while after we capped it, and because you used yeast in it.
Yeah.
And we'd have to wait so long, and we couldn't hardly stand it. But somehow, you always managed to have enough root beer that every parade that we went to, at the end of the parade, you had a big tub with ice in it and a bottle of root beer for every kid that was in the parade, every kid in the band.
You know that root beer capper still hanging down in the basement?
Yeah.
It's down there by the furnace. I think of that every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that I guess we just didn't have money to buy.
No, you didn't have money to buy anything, so you made it for us.
So we made it.
So the two of you worked real hard, hand in hand, to get us to get that little band the things that they needed to. And I know we didn't have a bus, so the parents had to help transport them wherever we went.
Yeah.
And that would take a lot of doing in that day for the gas for you to go to Salt Lake
It'd
and
take
go
all
to
the
Provo and to go all over like we did.
But people were so proud of that little band. I don't think we ever had to coax anybody
No, I'm sure you didn't.
to take their kids and to take some more. And I'm sure we got help from the parents buying a treat or something. We didn't.
No, but you were awfully good to see that we got what we needed, and it was so hot at the end of the parade that's why you always had a good cold drink for us.
Well, I'm glad
we were always
I'd forgotten that.
And needed it.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't forgotten us going out to Salt Air and Lagoon, have you?
You remember? No, and I was going to say to you, should we tell about that when Pearl lost her skirt?
Sure.
I don't know. Did we go up? Didn't they give us tickets?
Yeah, when we march in the 24th of July parade, then we were the guests of the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, and we could go either to Lagoon or to Salt Air, usually whichever one we wanted, they would make arrangements for us. And then we were their guests, and the whole place was ours. We could go on anything we wanted all day long. And I guess you and the parents fixed lunches for us, because we always had a lunch.
I'm sure we took lunches with us.
But we were up to
Was it Lagoon?
Yeah, it was Lagoon.
And Pearl.
Pearlie had on that little blue and white.
She had little blue
With white polka dot blouse, and it snapped.
Well,
it had little straps over that snapped.
Yes, it was a little jumper dress. And a white silk blouse and a dark blue with the white polka dots in it, about the size of a quarter.
Yeah.
And as the kids would go over the barrels when they first come in, they
at the air hose.
The air hose, yeah. The fellows that were running, they'd let it go for a few minutes, and you just go across, and nothing had happened. And here comes Pearl with this little light jumper dress that was quite full. It was full enough that I guess the guys could see they had a good chance there, and they gave it a full blast. And her dress just went up over her head,
blew it right off,
and you could just see it floating like this, and just floating out in the air. Well, Pearl was so embarrassed, she started to bawl.
Could have died.
Oh, she could have just died right on the spot, and she started to bawl, and she didn't enjoy the rest of that trip all the time.
No, not a bit.
Not one bit of it.
Everyone else was just doubling over with laughter, but it wasn't funny to Pearl. It never was funny
I
to
don't
Pearl.
think she ever did see the fun in
I
it.
don't think so either. The rest of us sure had fun over it.
Yeah.
I'll bet if you talked to some of those band kids to this day, they'd remember that.
They likely would.
You talk to most of the kids or the people down in Vineyard, and they remember the little bands and all the fun things that we used to do, and the roller skating, and the sleigh riding, fun things that we used to do, that Patty had us doing, that both of you had us doing.
Well, we've mainly talked about the fun things, but that was a good school. Earl had good teachers, and you kids learned a lot down there. Beth Scholl was one of his teachers. That's Bob's mother.
Jenny Walker was my first teacher.
And, well, all of them were good teachers.
She was my third grade teacher, and she was excellent. Mamie Hill was a good teacher.
And so was Mrs. Rasmussen.
And Mrs. C. Strand.
Mrs. who? Oh, yeah, Thelma C.
Yeah, Thelma.
Thelma C. Strand. And Oriole Clegg. They were all of them just outstanding teachers.
Yeah, they were.
And there was this, one of the teachers down there just wrote a little ode to Pat, and said he was a very good teacher, and everything had to be just right. But he said he was also a diplomat, and I think you look back and see that you not only got good training. You not only had fun, but you got good training. You got a good foundation, and in all of the basics of school.
Then you also did operas down there too, and I know on the operas you made some costumes and did a lot on that too.
I don't remember the operas down there.
Yeah, we did operas.
Did we?
Uh-huh. One opera, one of the first ones we did, and I don't remember what it was. Elroy Murdoch took one of the lead parts.
Oh.
And there again, he brought the community in, and the community worked with us. And on one, Ross and Erna Holdaway took lead parts.
Hmm.
And I remember us doing Tom Sawyer particularly, and I wanted to be Becky. Everyone wanted me to, or most of the kids said, "Oh, you got to be Becky, Ruth. That's why you would have to be. You're Beck. You're Becky." But Pappy was always so careful not to push us kids, we kids.
Yeah, he went over backwards.
We got pushed to the back rather. Now I don't know how come I ever was drum major. I guess because nobody else would do it, or he
couldn't get anyone to do it to suit him.
Yeah, so he put me in there. But that was one of the few things, because he wouldn't even listen to me being Becky. I couldn't even try for it, because that was the lead girl, and no way that.
No way.
Mm-mm.
He could have his own daughter in it.
No, that was never set. And so, anyway, I really remember that as rehearsing, and I don't even remember what I was in the play, but I was something. And in the Indian scene, where Injun Joe and Huck and Tom are in the cave, and they've been out whitewashing the fence earlier in the day, and on one of the performances, they'd moved the fence, but they still left a couple of the brushes laying there on the front of the stage. And so these guys, Huck and Tom, were in the cave and scared to death of Injun Joe, and Injun Joe is supposed to have been shot. Who was shot? Injun Joe was shot. Anyway, somebody was injured, and these guys were supposed to be dead. And one of the kids, and I think it was Max Williams, picked up the paintbrush and started painting the floor. And he was supposed to be dead. Oh. I don't think the curtain could come down fast enough on that scene to please Pappy. Skinned that kid. The audience was just hooting. So there was a lot of human things that went on, even though the performances were top notch. There was still occasionally the kids would be kids and do some human elements that made it extra fun.
Well, we're talking about the school. We had the big band there, and did we have a little band? I thought
that's a little band.
Yeah, that's the only band.
That's the only band picture you've got.
Well, I thought that's a cute picture of Pearl and Earl. Yeah, this would be after Ruth was out of school. It was about 1939, I believe.
39 or 40.
Or 40. Mm-hmm.
Pearl, about third grade there.
But I just found this picture, and it's the only one that I've seen of it. I don't even remember it, but I like it.
Then you had two pictures of classes. He always had his picture taken.
This is a picture, just a still picture of the band. Now Pearlie isn't on there.
Now this was when we first started, I'm sure.
But here's Ruth right on the bottom row with her accordion, and you can see the accordion's almost bigger than she is.
That was 120, and that's Shirley Williams right behind me. The girl that has the accordion that showed me where the buttons were.
Okay.
Well, could you see Pappy on that one? See, he was right up to the back.
Well, I didn't point him out, but I think anyone could tell.
Yeah, he's right up to the back.
Right here.
Okay.
Then,
well, that's the 5th and 6th grade. Every year he'd have his picture taken.
5th and 6th grade.
Uh-huh.
And here he is this time. That's when it was still Vineyard School, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Here he is this time, right up to the top.
Yeah, and I'm the next to the end when I'm right in front of Pappy. Can you see? Can you see him? Leave it straight.
Right here.
Uh-huh, leave it straight.
Right immediately down from...
Okay. Now, Pappy's right there. No, you gotta bring it in. Okay, there's Pappy right there. And that's me. Right there, and I'm fifth grade there.
That's 5th grade?
That's 5th grade.
Okay.
Because,
This would be about 1938.
yeah,
Okay.
30. And then the next one is, I'm 6th grade.
Now that's the one we just showed.
This is the year later, and I'm in 6th grade then, because
Now wait a minute.
Pappy's right on the...
Here's Earl right here on the very end.
Uh-huh.
But no, I can't see you.
I'm right up in the corner.
Up here?
Right on.
Up on this other corner.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm right. This isn't me cuddled over by Pappy. I'm right there with the googie eyes. Looking cross-eyed. But that's Kirby Allen's little girl that's cuddled over by Pappy there.
Well, like Bruce said a few minutes ago, he didn't dare show any of his kids any extra favors for fear it'd make a repercussion back and people would think it's okay, he's giving his own kids favors that he doesn't give the rest of us. So I used to get mad at him. I thought he went just the other opposite way, and he really penalized our kids for being his.
Now you've got another one there. And this is later. I was out of school.
This is 1952.
I don't ever remember Irwin Jensen coming down to Vineyard.
Now here's Earl, right here, right up here in this corner. But
And Mr. Jensen's right next to him, and Pearlie's back in the back corner.
yeah, I saw. Right here's Pearl. She's the first girl over there with her. Where the girls start.
Okay, now before we leave there, do you remember taking the boys and Earl and some of his friends and some of us going back down roller skating in the evenings and playing basketball on roller skates in the evenings? We used to.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Well,
Earl and Stan and Elroy, number of them.
I was working then, and people used to when I started to work, I was kind of I wasn't a pioneer, but it wasn't the main thing for people to do, for women to do either, and I got an awful lot of criticism for it, and so I worked awfully hard, extra hard, to see that my family had quality time, and that they had as much time with I spend as much time. In fact, I think I spent more time with you kids than people that didn't work did.
I think so too.
Because I was real conscious that that people were talking about me, and early, and when Early was in high school, he had quite a battle royal. One of his teachers had something to say about working women, working mothers, and said to kids that where their mother worked, the kids didn't amount to anything. And Early took exception to it, and he nearly got thrown out of school for it. But
I had to argue that point with two of my teachers every time they wanted to, didn't have something, I guess, planned for class particular, and they had a little free time, they'd bring up the subject of women working, and it was me against teacher in the class.
But it might not be a bad, well, is it too early to say, because of that, because of the criticism that was leveled at me, and because I was so anxious that it didn't affect your kids, I think our place was the gathering place for more parties and more, you had a lot of parties then.
Oh, yeah.
Early had parties, and you had parties, and Pearl had parties. And, of course, Gwen, as she grew up, had parties. And I don't think there was ever hardly a weekend that one of you didn't have a party at our place. And Pap and I were always accepted right in with you. We knew everything that you were doing. We were playing with the games.
You always livened the party up. When the parties get dull, we'd yell at you, come show us a game.
Yeah.
Or come play with us. Or something.
But we had...
Do you remember the night, one night you left? I was older then. I was about a junior in high school, and you left us for a while. But I know the kids always enjoyed you and Pat being there so much, and I always used to think I didn't know whether the kids came to see me or if they came to visit with you and Pat. But we were playing, and you had to go someplace, and some dumb reason, somehow anyway, they wanted to play post office, and I about died. I knew Pap would have a fit. If he came home, if you came home and saw us playing post office, it was, I was just scared to death as to what might happen. But they were bound determined that we were going to play post office. So naturally, you came home. And, of course, there'd been no problem, because there was only one girl that they all wanted to kiss, and that certainly wasn't me. That was the cute little doll of the group, you know. And you came home, and I about went through the floor. I thought, oh, boy, we've had it now. You walked in, and you said, what are you doing, kids? Oh, here we go. Oh, hi, Bradley had the empty chair, and he said, sit down, Mrs. Beck, and I'll show you. You just laughed and went off in the other room. Never a word was said. Never one word. The game busted up. We went on to something else, and that was the end of it. I don't think we ever played post office again, but there wasn't, you didn't ever say one word. You didn't have to. Oh, I was so tickled with Hi that night. I could have gone up and kissed him.
I don't remember that.
But you were real cute the way you knew what was going on. There was no pulling any wool over your eyes. But the kids did. They always felt at home at your place, because it was just, well, you made the kids feel good.
We always, and I always felt good because I knew where you were and I knew what you were doing.
Well, that was one thing we always argued, was that I went to school with Dad down in Vineyard, and I came home and with him, all we girls did, and then we had certain responsibilities. Well, when I got in high school, we all left about the same time for school. He got home right shortly after we did after school, and from the time I got home from school, I had certain things that I was to do. I was to get potatoes going and certain things, and the other kids went off goofing around, but I couldn't go off chasing around after school and chatting up.
That's one thing that I felt that was a plus, because I've always had a tendency to kind of wait on people. And I was a lot better mother by giving you kids something to do and by saying that you did it and you having an assignment than I would have been if I'd have been home and had everything ready for you all the time.
Yeah, you gave us instructions every day as to what we were to do when we got home from school that night. We knew it was to be done by the time you got home.
Yeah.
But then Pappy was there with us within an hour after school, so we weren't home alone like
We
like
didn't,
a lot of people think of as kids, parents working.
we didn't have any latchkey kids.
No. Mm-mm.
Well,
Okay. Now why don't you go back up on the farm for a few minutes?
turn it off just a minute.
No,
honey.
go back up on the farm. You didn't tell us about going to the fair.
I need to go to bed.
Okay. All righty.
No, have you turned it on now?
Yeah, you're on. Let's
Oh.
go back up to the farm.
No, this is,
Because you went to the fair.
this is when we were in the garage.
Yeah.
And it's the fair, I believe it was the 1934, 33 or 34, is the World's Fair was in San Francisco. You've got that little close, haven't you? And
Go ahead.
I don't know, we took our responsibilities quite seriously, I guess, because Leo felt like, when you had a dealership, they, you weren't your own boss. They told you what they expected of you, and they said that they wanted representation back at the convention. Well, Leo wanted to go, and Earl and I both thought it'd be a good deal to go too. So we all went to the fair. I guess we drove. I don't remember who went besides Leo, but I know Earl and I did. And the night of the convention, they had a great big convention hall, and they had tables, long tables all over. And in the center of the hall, or the dining room, they had, or not in the center, but where they served the buffet, they had a great big mound that must have been 3 feet long and more, or maybe longer than that. Just a mound like this, a great big long one, and gardenias stuck in it, a pretty gardenia corsage, or just a full-size gardenia like this, stuck in it, stuck in this mound, and there weren't any other women to the tables. I don't know. I got one of the gardenias, but I don't remember whether anyone else did or not. But I know when we all got seated around the tables, and the fellow that had charge got up and he said, "Gentlemen and Mrs. Beck." And I looked around, and I was the only woman in to all of those tables. And I thought, oh boy. But I wasn't going to let that spoil my fun. And I thought, there's no one I want to be with anyway, only my husband. So I went ahead and enjoyed it. But for a long time they kidded me, "Gentleman and Mrs. Beck." And we had a good time. And we went.
Well, you knew as much about the car business as most any of them there.
Yeah, I think I knew.
Probably more. You knew more than the two you were
That's
with.
what this guy said when he made that little thing to Earl. He said, if you wanted a price on your old wreck, you just drive it in and ask Eileen Beck. So Earl was gone down to school all the time, and Leo was part of the time out to the farm and like that, so I was there quite a bit alone.
You ran the business.
And but that wasn't what I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you
Now you had salesmen though, didn't you? That
well,
did the actual
yeah.
stuff.
And Marv, and we had
And then you had mechanics. You had
Marv Kirkman and B. Cobley were our mechanics. But there was a salesman usually around but back to the fair. we went to the World's Fair, and we got some cute pictures. And that was, I believe, the first trip I ever had. But that was real fun. And then, like Ruth said, Earl's sister Nora, we were still up to the farm, up on the farm then.
Yeah.
Earl's sister Nora came over and lived, stayed at our place, and took care of the kids, of Ruth and Earl and Pearl and Gwen, while we went to the World's Fair and to the Ford Convention. And we weren't gone. Well, I guess
You were
to
away
driving,
10 days. Or
driving
2 weeks.
both ways, it'd take us about 10 days. But we didn't. We only stayed 1 day or two out to the fair. I don't think we stayed two. I think just. But there's a couple of days of the convention that we had to go to. And when we got back to Tullamore Store, it's torn down now, but that's just at the foot of the Linden Hill. We went in Cullamore's and called and said we're home. And I don't know whether we told you could start walking and
Yeah, you told us that we could.
But anyway,
You told me that we could start walking.
Start walking
You were just
and-
going to get a few groceries, and then you'd.
we'd pick them up.
Uh-huh.
And Nora didn't think that they ought to try to walk down there. That they ought to wait home for us to come home. And Ruth wasn't about to take no for an answer, so Gwenny was, I don't know.
Gwen was about a year and a half, maybe 2.
She was, well, it was in 34. Gwen was born in 34. She wouldn't be very big. You'd just have to grab her and carry her all the way.
I had her on my shoulders.
That's
I
right.
gave her piggyback on my shoulders. I just flung her up on my shoulders and grabbed Pearl by the hands, and we took off on the run. We ran all the way down there.
They got,
You weren't even ready to start checking out yet.
it was a quarter of a mile, or I mean a half a mile, wasn't it? Or
Oh, I'm sure.
good half a mile or a little bit better. Here these kids came in the store, and Ruth with one by the hand and one on her shoulder. But we were awful glad to see them, and
We were so homesick, boy, nobody was going to stop us. I don't know where Earl was. I don't remember if he'd have had Gwen on his shoulders if he'd just been with us, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure he maybe wasn't home from school yet.
Well, it was in the summertime.
Yeah.
It was in the summertime. Now, we keep talking about up on the farm. Pleasant Grove East Steakhouse is on the back part, the north end of the orchard of the farm.
We had 5 acres up there,
Yeah.
and
And part of the Pleasant Grove East Steakhouse would be your farm.
well, it's they grow the best apples up in there yet of any place else.
Right up by Tomlinson's.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it was quite a little jaunt.
Yeah, it was, and it was quite a bit for you kids to run down there. Well,
But it was fun. Okay, are you ready to go down to the Jimmy D. Thorne place in the garage now?
Yeah.
While you're talking about the garage?
well, I've pretty well talked about the garage.
Oh, no.
Early really liked the garage.
Yeah.
B. Cobley was real good to him, and so was Marv, and they let him. We bought one of the old clunkers, or we paid some for it so Early could have it, and he and Marv and B fixed it up after Earl had come home from school, and after they never worked
After
on
hours.
they didn't work on it on company time, but they'd help him after hours fix that old clunker up. And he wasn't old enough to drive then, was he?
Getting pretty close.
I guess he was.
But he wasn't. I don't believe he had his license yet, but he was getting off the close.
But he was getting close enough that he wanted to drive. Yeah. And he drove. We fixed that up around, and then fixed one of those old cars up, and then I don't know where they'd take it to test it out and let Ilene drive.
Down the back streets, down by the Sam White Lane, or up to the junkyard.
Yeah, places like that. But he really enjoyed the garage because he was working on a car or working on driving or something like that. He was tinkering around the garage nearly all the time, and he enjoyed that.
Remember looking out the window one day and see him get hit by a car there on Main Street?
Oh, yeah. That was after we sold it. It was after we sold the farm, and
yeah, we were living
in the old Jimmy D. Thorne place. And I don't remember whether
I was out on the lawn.
I don't know.
I saw him.
I was over in the garage, I think.
He was over in the garage and started heading over home.
Yeah, Earl was going from the garage over. Now Jimmy D. Thorne's place was just across the street and a half a block north.
Well, not even that. It was just kind of
a
little
angled over. And so Ilene had started from the garage to go over to go home. And I don't know. Do you remember who hit him or anything?
I don't remember who hit him. I just remember seeing him up on the hood of that car. The car hit him, and he was on the hood of the car and then rolling off.
He rode. The guy
off.
kept driving because he rode on the hood of that car for 10 or 15 feet before it dropped him off. But he never got any really bad. He didn't really get hurt very bad. We
got bruised up pretty good, but he
we
didn't
rushed.
We rushed him
We rushed him to the doctor. And while we're talking, we didn't have any of those pictures, some of those cute pictures of well, but we haven't got any of those out right now.
If you can.
I meant the bigger ones.
Of what?
Of you kids when we lived down in the Jimmy D. Thorne place. That's when we had those cute pictures taken of you.
Oh, okay, I'll get those in a minute. Another thing that when you worked with the garage, you're flipping that pan and that's making a click every now and then. I wonder what the click is. When you were in the garage, a wreck meant business, didn't it?
A what?
If somebody had a wreck, you had a wrecker. You frequently were a
I was like what you'd call an ambulance chaser.
Yeah.
If business was a little bit slow and I was things looking for a little bit business to come in, I sometimes, when the siren would go out, I'd follow them out to see what it was. And one day, the siren sounded, and so I got in the car and went down to followed it out to see what was the deal. And my brother,
Denny.
Was it Denny?
Denny.
My brother Denny was driving a bread truck. It was a Clark.
With Denny.
He was driving a
Wonder Bread.
What kind? Wonder Bread. Yeah, he was driving a truck for Wonder Bread, and right down about where Holmes was.
He just pulled out from the old Wasatch.
From the old what?
Wasatch.
Was that?
The Wasatch Cafe. You remember there used to be a cafe in there that Audrey and Blaine Swenson had what we called and then Ruby and Lloyd. Lloyd.
Uh-huh. Well, anyway,
They had the Wasatch Cafe, and so he stopped to to deliver bread there. And
Well-
he was just pulling out from that, and it's right there by Walker Oil now. And there was a big check hole there, I believe.
And I got there just in time to see him.
He flipped it. It rolled completely over and was on its top,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it went completely over. And they just got the truck righted. And I saw my brother Denny. And I nearly
Now, you always told us you got there in time to see him crawl out
yeah,
of the windows.
I saw him crawl out of it.
And it was on its top, and he crawled out of the windows.
Oh, I don't remember exactly that, but
That's what you always told us.
I know I was so scared that I don't think I never followed another
That
ambulance.
scared your chasing, didn't
No,
it?
I never followed another ambulance. But then we didn't have the garage that much longer either. While I was working there in the garage, and we were living there in the Jimmy D. Thorne place, Earl always hated these teeth, and he had a couple of. I didn't think they looked so bad, but he always said he had buck teeth. And one day he came over. I was over to the garage, and he never told me. He didn't say he had an appointment or anything. He never said he was going to have his teeth out. He walked. He had every tooth pulled out of his head, and he walked from the dentist's office across the street and over to the garage. And he looked at me and kind of grinned, and he says, "I've had my teeth all out." And then he swooned. He just started to swoon and started to faint. And I think Marv was close enough that he saw, and I couldn't hold him up. I held